Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday, April 17th, 2020. Let's get started today with some space weather news, and then we'll head into some articles of topic that I found today. Space right now, solar winds coming in at 341.1 kilometers per second with a density of 2.0. Check out our sun. It is blank once again. That is now 12 days in a row without sunspots, 82 total in 2020 spotless days. That makes now 76% of 2020 has been spotless. Right now, cosmic radiation coming in at 11.0%. Again, the record for this is 11.7. That is the all-time high in the space age recordings. 11.7% was set back in February of 2009 during our the previous solar minimum was very deep as well. This one's obviously a little deeper, but the solar minimum in 2009 was one of the deepest in over 150 years at that time. So we are still pushing to see if we tie the record or break the record, and I would say it's going to happen this month if it happens. TCI remaining at 3.65. That's due to moderate solar wind speeds, not really doing much with that, so we will see that to continue to drop. TCI is the Thermosphere Climate Index, and a KP indice right now is 0 with a 24-hour max of a 2. Nothing large as far as a coronal hole to speak of. NOAA is not expecting any flow of solar wind stream heading our way anytime soon, so that is a sign of, again, of more quiet sun conditions as we are in a deep minimum at this current time. Let's hop over to the grandsolarminimum.com and take a look at our space weather page there and see if we've had any uptick in the activity. Everything looks pretty quiet. The solar X-ray flux is very low right now. The KP indices have been trending even lower from about a 3 on April 15th. Now we're looking at ratings between 0 and 2 over the past 24 to 36 hours. And what do we see as far as potential sunspots? Nothing right now, but we do have an active region here, and there it is, but that's almost on the complete reverse side of what we're seeing right now on the sun. There's Earth facing right there at 0, eastern limb there, and there is the bright region. So we are probably around 9 to 10 days away from seeing that particular bright active region breaching the eastern limb. Actually, probably closer to 6 or 7 days, I should say. But nonetheless, will it hold up? Will it turn Earth-facing and be a sunspot? And if it is, then that is also another indication of the end of solar cycle 24. Remember, solar cycles at the beginning, sunspot locations are going to be at the 30 or higher. And then as you get towards the end of the solar cycle, sunspot locations usually tend up in the equatorial region of the sun. So 12 days without sunspots in a row. Potentially we could see this go on for another 8 to 10 days. Yes, just depending on what this active region is doing by the time it breaks that eastern limb in the next several days. And just kind of, here's an overall look, a panoramic view. We do see some brighter areas back there beyond the eastern limb. So again, something we'll continue to watch, as the month of April has been pretty quiet thus far. We've had a couple of minor sunspots, but nothing really to write home about. Alrighty, so, oh, yep, there's our CO2, just in case if y'all thinking the shutdown is affecting anything. I just want to put this up as much as possible. As you all know, in the month of March, the UAH temperature dropped from 0.77 above baseline to 0.48 in the month of March. And CO2 is continuing to rise. For the month of March, officially, it was 14.50. So we're trying to make sense of why we are still seeing temperatures dropping when CO2 is rising. And might want to add, why is CO2 rising when we see less industrial activity? And I don't know how I can say this without sounding too arrogant, but what more proof do you need to see when it comes to what man puts in the atmosphere and what it does to the climate? We've basically been shut down almost globally. Less emissions from humans, driving, factories, everything. And CO2 levels continue to rise. So for all of you out there who think that the Green New Deal and the tax breaks that it could bring is going to be a great idea, and let's go renewable, and yeah, let's go green, that's great, we get renewable energy, and it all sounds like a great plan, but realistically, we're doing it for the reasons of climate emergency. When in real life, theories like the Green New Deal is just an economic change, transforms the entire economy, which right now, odd enough, we are seeing a transformation to our economy right now as we speak. And there are people who are trying to strike while the iron is hot, I should say, as far as Green New Deal policies. But for me, we've seen over 60 days just about of shutdowns. Temperatures are dropping. And of course, the AGW will say, temperature's dropping because we stopped producing CO2 and emitting it into the atmosphere. And then you show them this. And then they ask you, well, I don't know, and I don't know, make an excuse or something. But I just find it important that we keep driving this message first and foremost. All right. Because this is half the battle. You get people off this CO2 theory, and then the more you get into solar forcing and how it affects our climate, that will make more sense to you. And I can't think of a way more clear way to try to explain to everybody out there that these policies like Green New Deal, it's not going to be to anyone's benefit except for the people writing these laws. And these, rich corporations that get contract bids for the transformation into green everything. The sad part is that we would spend trillions of dollars to transform our economy to help against climate change, right? Trillions. And then once you spent that initial trillions, and I've seen reports saying 43 trillion, I've seen reports that say 97 trillion. And that's just a first phase, possibly another 50 trillion after that over the next 10 years, of course, not right away, but over the first 10 years, 93 trillion, and then somewhere between 25 and 50 trillion after that. On top of the possibility of restarting up natural gas plants, coal plants, and oil again during this time. So imagine that. And you're saying, well, why would we restart anything if we had everything converted? What do you mean, Jake? We spent trillions of dollars, hundreds of trillions of dollars to get the economy to switch over to green. What I'm saying is that you and I both know that by the time we get to 2025, 2026, solar and wind will be nothing but a fart in the wind. And people are going to scramble to get these other plants fired back up again because they're going to find out the hard way. In other words, if you ignore the obvious signs that CO2 does not affect the climate and man's emissions is not enough to affect the climate, then you're going to be paying that really heavy price from now when we have these Green New Deal policies in place all over. And again, just take this as a warning. I'm trying to tell you right now the obvious truth that CO2 and our emissions, yes, our emissions may cause water pollution and air pollution. I'm not saying that we don't impact our environment. What I'm saying is the reason why these political leaders want to implement this Green New Deal situation is that it is a moneymaker. There are billions of dollars being floated around right now for this industry to start. And the people that are on board now, they are going to cash in more than anything. And think about it, guys. These Green New Deal companies, Beyond Meat, what's happening right now to our economy with this pandemic? Suffering the most are the farmers. If they can't sell their cattle because restaurants aren't open, And groceries, we're not dealing with the normal orders that restaurants would be making right now for their restaurants. They're not open. So now the farmer has to pay for additional costs for feed and board. Basically, you have to keep the cattle around for so long until you figure out what you can do with it sale-wise. So how convenient is it that companies like Beyond Meat, which is a plant-based meat patty, I guess, I don't know, Al Gore has his hands in the jar. How convenient is it for these guys? So this is going to be a no-brainer to the sheeple out there when they hear about, well, listen, we'll get Beyond Meat involved and we're having problems with cattle shortages anyway, so this solves our meat problem. So yeah, I mean, all this Green New Deal stuff that's been, attempted to be pushed in our faces over the past several months. We are starting to see situations right now where we're kind of living a real life Green New Deal. When your economy shut down, there's not as much foot traffic for vehicle travel. Air travel is down. Factories are down. Their productions are down. Less CO2 being emitted by man. But yet temperatures are still dropping. And, across the country, I don't have to really sit here and, pull random facts out here. I'll show you right now. All the cold records that were broke just recently here. Severe cold outbreak has gripped the wide swaths of the U.S., breaking hundreds of all-time records, particularly the worst-hit states in the Midwest. According to the National Weather Service, heavy snow will continue into the central Rockies before streaking across the central plains of upstate New York through today, Friday, April 17th, 2020. A few record lows are also forecast from the Front Range of the Rockies into the Midwest through Saturday, April 18th. Snowfall and temperatures hit record levels in several cities across the central and northern proportions of the country. In 7 days to April 16th, NOAA daily records shows that the U.S. had 88 high maximum records, 107 high minimum, 338 low maximum, 235 low minimum, 318 precipitation, and 165 snow records. And I'll go ahead and actually bring that chart up and just show you the records. And lots of cold records out here. Lots of snowfall records, especially here recently. And just in the last 7 days, 165 snowfall records, 235 low minimum records, and 335 low maximum temperatures, meaning the high temperature was a chilly high temperature. It was the lowest possible maximum temperature they have recorded during that particular time of the year. So lots of cold, lots of snow. Wisconsin, Eau Claire saw about 7.7 inches of snow, breaking the previous daily record of April 12th, 1962 is when that original one was set, smashing the previous record, snowiest Easter set on 1929, which was 5.5 inches of snow. Iowa, several towns saw record amounts of snow. We reported on this earlier in the week, 11 inches. Rock Valley had 7 inches. Sioux Falls had 5.2 inches of snow, the most on any date since 1893. And on and on and on it goes. Snow, 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 April 15th, April 16th. Low temperatures Monday morning in Denver was 16 degrees, broke a city's record cold for April 13th. That record was set back in 1933, which was 17 degrees, so it only broke it by a degree, but it still broke a record. The season, Boulder has had 134.3 inches of snow, the fifth most on record. Again, why am I mentioning this? And just to kind of show a regional example of how we are seeing colder temperatures still. Yes, less CO2 in the atmosphere, but I've already showed you on how much we have right now, which it's not going down, but yet we're seeing a bunch of this. Thanks to Watchers.news for putting this together. Lots of information about this current storm that's affecting parts of the Ohio and heading into Pennsylvania, into New York later. Yeah, believe it or not, we got snow to talk about again here in the Northwest. And I had a couple of questions about the ozone depletion. It was a record low in March. Reading the article, okay, I'll just read the headline here. The analysis of a satellite observation shows that ozone levels over the Arctic hit a record low for the month of March. NASA researchers reported on April 16th. Ozone levels reached their lowest point on March 12th at 205 Dobson units. The depletion was caused by an unusually weak upper atmospheric wave events from December of 2019 through March of this year. They don't know why. They are not aware of why this happened. It's very unusual. These depletion events happen once in a decade. And this one happens to be during a month and a period of the year where it's usually not this week. So it's rare in a sense that it's not so much that it's happening right now, but the month that it's happening in is the unusual part. Again, they don't know why this is happening, nonetheless. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, I've had people ask, could this have an effect on cosmic radiation, UV, ultraviolet light? Absolutely. So good heads up there, point out the ozone situation, because it very well could have a hand in some of this crazy weather we've seen, the flooding, the snowfall. And it's April 17th and we're still dealing with snow. Nothing, crippling or anything like that. But still, we're dealing with quite a bit of snow. And as I'm going through these articles, here's another one here. South Africa getting some early snow here on Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. Stand by for a second. So early snow here in South Africa as they are heading into their winter season. And then we had another unusual event, I guess, reading this here, the person they're talking about in the article. This is in New Zealand. His father's been farming for over 40 years, and this is an unprecedented event for this part of New Zealand. April snowfall in Kingston, New Zealand, a bit of a shock as cold snap hits. Nothing too crazy about it. They did see some snow, but the temperatures are not usually this cold already at this point of the year. So we're starting to see some interesting developments in early Southern Hemisphere winters. And I've always talked about this just based on what I've learned. What usually happens in Australia in their winter is what is to follow for what we could see in New Zealand, being in the region of Australia, to see early snow in two parts of the world, South Africa and now New Zealand. Are we going to see the same thing happen? And again, it already happened last year, right? Montana got that 4 feet in September. But are we going to see a repeat of that? And is it going to be a little earlier than September 29th? Could we see somewhere a mid-September snow, a big one, and some early cold? We're not out of the woods yet for the warmest of the air to move in for spring yet. And we're already halfway through April. All right, so let me move over here real quick to thegrandsolarminimum.com. We have it in our resource bar where you can take a look at the crop reports. Not much change from April 5th to April 12th as far as field work that's suitable. Down in the south, I mean, these days, technically, there's areas that could be working in the fields. Obviously, they've had some bad weather to deal with, so that's that could be questionable there as far as those numbers. The northern plains states, definitely not much going on up there. Nothing going on. Ohio kind of lagging as well. Parts in the Northeast aren't really able to start much field work in New York, Vermont. So it's not an emergency or anything like that. But right now, not looking good for some states. And other states, everything's okay for the point. Corn percent planted, well, not much being planted, and it's not really a big deal either. Previous year, in, for instance, North Carolina, 14% of the corn planted at this point. Right now, we're sitting at 28%. So places like North Carolina is doing well. Kentucky, believe it or not, is also doubled its percentage planted from last year. Tennessee is down 2% from last year. And that's interesting to mention because they were probably, them and Texas were the best in crops. So about like last year, and Texas is a little bit higher as far as percentage planted right now. But this is early going, guys. We're only in the second week of April for this report. So some good signs out there that some areas are getting off to a decent start. And right now, we just haven't really had anything to report because it's not usually this time of the year for most of these farmers here, as far like places like Michigan. You know, they don't plant right now. Minnesota, Missouri down a little bit, but still New England, obviously nothing going on. So you look at the last year numbers and you look at the 5-year trend. Also, like Kentucky, the 5-year trend is 6% by now. That was what they did last year, and they're sitting at 12. So a really good start for parts in the United States. So let's hope that some of these farmers get a lot of good luck this year as far as growing crops. Last year was a mess. We really can't afford a lot of years back to back to back like this. And there's already fears, though, that 2020 could be as bad as 2019. And I'd have to say right now, with the amount of moisture we've seen falling, and I'll show you guys here in the GFS report too, that these numbers are obviously going to change. It's still early in the year. And April so far has been pretty wet. And like I said, we'll go into that here in a minute. More severe weather for the South. Again, heavy rain. You know, this one doesn't look as bad as the tornadoes that we had from last weekend's Easter outbreak. But nonetheless, we're looking at severe weather. And these are areas that have already dealt with some strong storms. This starts on Saturday. A few severe storms are possible Saturday afternoon and evening from central Texas into the lower Mississippi Valley. Large hail will be the primary threat there. And, you know, last week's forecast, we were talking about this last Thursday and Friday before it hit. We had that purple shade that was in the middle of the swaths. And I said that when you see that, it is almost 100% guaranteed, even though it's not on the extreme. The purple is always spot on. I've never seen them miss when it comes to that. And unfortunately, that purple shaded area showed up. This week, we're not seeing that. That doesn't mean we still can't get tornadoes, but they don't feel as confident and as strong as they did last weekend about tornadoes being a threat as bad as it was last weekend. Sunday looks to be the most active day for severe weather. Thunderstorms will likely form early Sunday in Texas, then spread across Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, North Florida on Sunday night, also into the Carolinas, potentially lasting overnight. So again, more evening storms overnight, which are the worst. Some tornadoes are expected, both spawned by supercells and embedded with the squall line of severe storms. Double whammy there, but the overall setup does not look as favorable for as numerous and intense tornadoes that we saw across the South on Easter and Sunday and Monday. But here's the thing, and that's good news out of this whole thing, I guess. But the areas in deep red, now, that's the areas that really didn't get hit as hard as the other parts last Easter weekend. It was more north of that. So where you see, and I'll get my arrow here, but last weekend we saw the storms racing up the northeast. So it kind of skipped the far southern portions of the South. This weekend they get their shot at severe weather. Now still, we're talking about hail. We're talking about dangerous winds, lightning, of course, some possibility of flash flooding as well. So we're not downplaying this or minimizing it in any way. We want people to be alert over the weekend for the potential of this happening Sunday night, especially Saturday night into Sunday and Sunday into Sunday night. Unfortunately, we are talking about more storms overnight and the possibility of tornadoes at night as well. And then while we're dealing with severe weather In the south, we're dealing with snow. In the northeast, yes, the snow has already moved across parts of the United States, breaking some records already. But this snow line here, I've seen two different forecast maps. One showing the lighter snow a little bit further up north. So generally, most of the state of New York could look at 1 to 3 inches of snow. And then the 3 to 6, maybe even 6 to 10 in parts of Iowa and northern Missouri, but very, very, very small chance of that here in the Northeast. 3 to 6 seems pretty fair. 6 to 10, not looking likely with this. But remember, it's been above freezing here in the Northeast. It's not been the best of weather. But with that said, we're going to see the snow sticking mainly on grassy areas, trees. So we still have a couple of hazards. Even though you only get 3 to 6 inches of snow, it's going to be a wet, heavy snow with winds possibly. So we could have downed tree limbs, and that could lead to power outages as well. So we got to worry about the south with severe weather and then possibly a winter mess up north. But generally speaking, they're thinking this is going to be a 1 to 3 inch snowfall event for most of us. 3 to 6 inches for places like New Hampshire, northern Connecticut, and Massachusetts on higher ground, looking at 3 to 6 inches. There is a chance that some areas could pick up a foot of snow on the higher elevation parts of the Northeast. But for the most part, this is going to be a generally light situation for most New Yorkers and the rest here in the Northeast. Looks like snow is running all the way through Saturday morning. This event starts really later tonight and through the overnight into tomorrow morning, and it'll be over just as fast as it started. So nothing really crazy. A quick hitter of snow. Is that the end of snow? Well, let's find out. Right now, we've got a bunch of freeze warnings for tonight. Parts of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and central Ohio, believe it or not, with freeze warnings. In the purple shaded areas, like right up in here, and I'll move this over a little bit. Let's zoom in on this part of the country since that's really where all the weather is. We can do that. So, but yes, we have winter storm warnings in the far parts in Massachusetts. These are winter weather advisories, which generally mean 1 to 3 inches, 2 to 4 inches. And then we'll go back a little further towards the Midwest. These are freeze warnings. These are freeze watches. And again, April 17th. So you definitely can't plan anything when you're going to have a hard freeze. Other than that, flood advisories up and down the Mississippi. Nothing major right now. The calm before the storm, I guess. Because we got moisture to deal with here in the Northeast and in the South as well. Here's that quick moving system now. This is Saturday. As you see right there, the heaviest of it's going to be mainly inland Massachusetts. The central capital region, Albany, New York, should see about 3 to 5 inches of snow from this. This system tries to make an exit by midnight Saturday into Sunday, all clear, and a little bit of high pressure system, but then low pressure develops on Sunday night. This is where we have our severe threat. Sunday into Monday, lots of rain for the south, possibly 2 to 4 inches in areas that already received 2 to 4 inches just last week. And then look at this. Snow in the Northeast, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and parts of far upstate New York. As more high pressure trying to move in, bringing in colder air to the Northeast. Rain moves off the coast by Tuesday, and then another quick system coming through the Northeast again. Yes, bringing snow and rain on April 22nd into the Northeast. That quickly moves out. There's another clipper coming our way on April 22nd. As that one moves away, more low pressure development in the Southwest. This could get really risky down here. Again, 2 low pressure systems over 5 days that could produce severe weather, heavy rain, tornadoes, and damaging hail. That moves quickly across the South and pretty much reiterates what they just went through the previous weekend. So Easter, this weekend, and next weekend, or early, I should say late week to early weekend, we will see another system move through the south that could be problematic once again. So nothing is letting up for anybody in the south, as well as the northeast. Moisture continues. Low pressure system after low pressure system. Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, parts of up the Mississippi River valleys. More moisture and rain for you guys by the 25th of April. And a cold front really at the end of April that looks to me, geez Louise. So the northeast looking pretty unseasonable at this point, according to what the GFS is telling us here. But we do get some dry days for the south and the northeast, but then we start to see moisture develop again for the northern plain states. And now we see it move across the Midwest by May. More May showers, and believe it or not, snow and high elevation still in the Rockies by May 2nd, May 3rd. So the affected areas, it looks like the south and the northeast, we're going to get our medicine for the next 2 weeks. And then it's going to shift gears a little bit and affect basically the central plain states and the Midwest after this, the Northwest and the northern plain states. Again, I don't really like to hang my hat on anything past 7 days. I kind of look at these as an idea of what we could see over a period of time. Temperatures, let's take a look at that. Are we going to see spring? Well, for the most part, yes. All the way through mid-April and then towards the 20s, very nice across most of the central plain states, the south, the Ohio Valley in good shape. Northeast, kind of chilly. Northern Plains, Great Lakes start to get a little chilly here at the end of April. You can see the contrast. Great weather across the central plain states, Kansas, Nebraska, warm, but that's where once we see the temperatures rise as well, we're also going to see more development of showers and storms across that region. So love-hate kind of thing here. And then we got some really nice warm temperatures at the end of April for the mid-Atlantic states and the East Coast. But as you see, a weak cold front trying to keep things from getting too comfy out here by the end of May. Look at that. So we could see, get this, high temperatures in New York City near 85 degrees on May 2nd. Central parts of New York in the mid-60s, 70s, and then 24 hours later, struggle to get out of the 40s. So this back and forth, up and down, cold, moisture everywhere, every other week, every other day, it seems like there's a new system. That is part of grand solar minimum light conditions. And just think, guys, this is only the very, very beginning of the grand solar minimum. We're not even getting started yet. This is like the appetizer of the appetizer of the appetizer, basically, to put it in layman's terms. So, Mari, would you like to say hello to our lovely members out there in the chat?
Lovely members in the chat. Thor's back. We haven't seen him. He hasn't been around as much, but he's doing better. And Edward asked if we're going to be on WTF Sky anytime soon, and I figured probably this weekend.
Maybe even today.
Oh, you might even want to do that today.
I think there's a lot of things.
We could have a Friday Night Live on WTF.
There's a lot of things that probably need to be discussed, so we'll keep that for WTF Sky.
We can do that then.
Yep.
We'll try that. What time do you think?
I don't know.
We'll just
spontaneous.
We'll just be spontaneous.
You'll see me when you see me. Sorry.
No, I was just telling people were talking about gardening. Some people asked what I plan on. I got a bunch of heirloom seeds, and we're going to venture out on Saturday to pick up some more grow bags. Good luck. But just fun things like reusing vegetable scraps to, get some things in the ground. I'm reusing my celery. And I know my little girl's fascinated that you could just cut celery and, get the roots going and plant it again. She thinks that's the neatest thing. So I'm going to be repotting some of those. I got potatoes to plant, tomatoes, cucumbers. There's some squash, but I don't think I'm going to bother because I just don't think we're going to have the summer to actually get anything worthy out of it to produced.
It's going to be a challenge for sure. I think all our growing is going to be indoors, and we're going to see it's going to be some growing pains for real this year if you're trying to grow any kind of source of food for yourself and your family. It's
going to be tricky. So
especially up here in the Northeast.
Right now, I think my focus is going to be indoors growing and trying to get this root garden established. I have some neat containers that you can open up the bottom and get to the roots to like get the potatoes or onions or carrots or whatever you're getting. So I picked up a few of those, and I'm going to see how well they fare in our lighting situation. And that's all. I'll be posting pictures and video of what we're attempting in our basement soon. Once we get things going, I just got to get some more supplies this weekend, right, Jake? Fun times.
Can't wait. Is that all you had?
That's all I had.
All right.
I wish I could plan to garden outside right now. It's just too darn cold. And I learned my lesson last year from all my epic failures of spring in New York with the cold and the wet.
Well, it's things can change, so we never know. But right now, just looking at our weather pattern, I don't see any kind of increased chances for a good growing up here in the Northeast. We get a couple mild days late in April, and then May it goes right back down the tanks.
If you want to garden, you have to just start inside, and if you're lucky enough to get them transplanted outside. But I'm not banking on outside gardening. I'm going to try to make my focus seeing how much I can grow indoors and just experiment right now. What works, what doesn't.
Yeah, and what should be a future show too is talking about, how important it would be, like have an open topic about how important it would be to form small communities. Because look, if you think you're going to be able to grow your food and feed your family out of your garden in your backyard, you're sadly mistaken. You're going to want to work with other people. You're going to want to work with other gardens, trade and barter. So, and
that's one thing I'm trying to work on right now is a website for just my community. I don't think I can do anything larger scale quite yet, but I'm trying to develop like a business marketplace for our farmers, our local farmers, to connect them to the community easier and give them a place to share what they have, what kind of deals. And other areas are doing this now, and we spoke about this last week, the supply chain issues, people scared about food shortages, people scared about the dumping. These are all definitely things to be concerned about, but reaching out to your local community and your farmers and coming up with plans will definitely help relieve the supply chain issues. Do a Google search. There's lots of articles of people showing that now the communities are stepping up and helping our farmers reroute the supply chain. So I'm excited that I'm seeing this so early because I thought it would take longer time, but I'm hoping that this website I am trying to facilitate rather quickly will take off, and I hope it does help farmers, and it's not going to be like a charge or anything. I'm essentially putting my effort and work into free advertising for our farmers in our community. It's like a small donation. Yep. It's just love.
Trying to help stop the waste for sure.
Yeah.
So. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in today. We will be back. I think we'll probably do something over the weekend too. We won't wait until Monday. There's a lot to talk about Grand Solar Minimum. We could have a fireside chat about gardening and stuff like that. So we might be back on this weekend. But for those of you who follow our channel, WTF Sky, that is where we'll probably have a discussion tonight, talking about current events on WTF Sky and give you an update on what's being done to the response of the COVID-19 virus. All right, guys, we hope everyone is safe and healthy. We will talk soon. Take care.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.